Good day everyone. This is your host Harshit Simha once again continuing the part 2 of the Transparency Revolution, 25 Years of CDP, which I continue with opening of the part 9, Challenges in Future, where we explore how the Carbon Disclosure Project, now globally recognized as CDP, is preparing itself for the next generation of environmental disclosure. During the past 25 years, CDP has transformed from a voluntary climate disclosure initiative into one of the world's most influential environmental reporting platforms. However, the journey ahead is becoming increasingly complex. The main topic, Challenges and Future, reflects the rapidly evolving sustainability landscape. Climate change is no longer viewed as an isolated environmental concern. Instead, organizations are now expected to address interconnected challenges involving biodiversity loss, water security, deforestation, plastics pollution, ocean health, and social resilience within a unified sustainability strategy. A more complex operating environment emphasizes that companies are facing growing expectations from regulators, investors, financial institutions, governments, customers, and civil society. Stakeholders now demand transparent, consistent, science-based, and decision-useful disclosures that demonstrate measurable environmental performance rather than aspirational commitments alone. Another important topic is strategic evolution of CDP. CDP is responding by expanding beyond traditional carbon accounting toward integrated environmental intelligence. This transformation enables organizations to understand the relationships between climate risks, natural ecosystems, supply chains, governance structures, and financial performance. Such integration supports better strategic planning and strengthens long-term business resilience. As sustainability professionals, we should recognize that future competitiveness will increasingly depend upon high-quality environmental disclosures supported by credible data, digital technologies, and science-based targets. Throughout this chapter, we will examine how CDP is evolving into an integrated platform capable of supporting the global transition toward a resilient, transparent, and nature-positive economy. Slide 2. Part 10. The Nature-Positive Frontier. Let us now explore Part 10. The Nature-Positive Frontier, one of the most transformative developments in CDP's recent history. Traditionally, environmental reporting concentrated predominantly on greenhouse gas emissions and climate mitigation. However, scientific evidence clearly demonstrates that climate stability cannot be achieved without protecting ecosystems, biodiversity, freshwater resources, forests, soils, and oceans. The main topic, the Nature-Positive Frontier, introduces CDP's strategic shift from a carbon-centric reporting model to a comprehensive environmental disclosure framework that recognizes the interconnectedness of Earth's natural systems. The first phase, pre-2020 carbon-centric approach, highlights that CDP primarily focused on climate disclosures while water and forests functioned as complementary reporting programs. Although valuable, this approach treated environmental challenges separately. The second phase, 2022 biodiversity integration, marks a significant milestone. CDP formally introduced biodiversity-related disclosure metrics, recognizing ecological degradation as a financially material business risk. Organizations began assessing ecosystem dependencies, biodiversity impacts, habitat degradation, and nature-related risks alongside climate considerations. The third phase, 2024 to 2026 Integrated Nature-Positive Framework, demonstrates CDP's ambition to create a holistic environmental disclosure platform aligned with globally recognized frameworks such as the Task Force on Nature-Related Financial Disclosures, TNFD, and the Science-Based Targets Network, SBTN. The framework expands corporate reporting to include plastics, oceans, soil health, freshwater ecosystems, and broader planetary boundaries. As sustainability leaders, we must appreciate that nature-positive business strategies are becoming central to enterprise risk management, investment decision-making, regulatory compliance, and long-term value creation. Protecting natural capital is no longer simply an environmental obligation. It has become an essential determinant of sustainable economic growth and corporate resilience. Slide 3. The Plastics Paradigm, From Crisis to Accountability. In this slide, we examine the plastics paradigm, illustrating how plastic pollution has emerged as one of the defining sustainability challenges of the 21st century. Despite decades of environmental concern, plastics remained largely absent from standardized corporate disclosure frameworks until very recently. The plastics paradigm emphasizes the transition from recognizing plastic pollution as a global environmental crisis to establishing measurable corporate accountability through standardized disclosure. From crisis to accountability explains that plastic waste severely affects marine biodiversity, contaminates terrestrial ecosystems, enters food chains through microplastics, and ultimately impacts human health. Yet businesses historically lacked consistent mechanisms to quantify their plastic footprint across operations and supply chains. The 2024 formal standardization highlights CDP's introduction of a dedicated plastics disclosure framework. Organizations are now expected to measure plastic consumption throughout the product life cycle, beginning with virgin polymer procurement and extending through manufacturing, packaging, distribution, recycling, waste management, and end-of-life disposal. Another important topic is circular economy transition. By measuring plastic footprints, companies can identify opportunities for material reduction, reusable packaging, recycled content, eco-design, and circular business models. Such disclosures also prepare businesses for emerging international plastics agreements and increasingly stringent national regulations. As environmental professionals, we should recognize that plastics disclosure extends beyond regulatory compliance. It supports resource efficiency, innovation, responsible product stewardship, sustainable procurement, consumer trust, and ESG performance. Transparent reporting encourages organizations to transform linear consumption patterns into regenerative circular systems that reduce environmental impacts while creating long-term business value and strengthening corporate sustainability leadership. Slide 4. Expanding into the deep blue. This slide introduces expanding into the deep blue, representing CDP's expansion into one of the least addressed dimensions of corporate environmental reporting, the oceans. Oceans regulate Earth's climate, absorb enormous quantities of carbon dioxide and excess heat, sustain biodiversity, support fisheries, facilitate international trade, and provide livelihoods for billions of people worldwide. Expanding into the deep blue reflects CDP's recognition that ocean health is fundamental to climate resilience, biodiversity conservation, and sustainable economic development. The disclosure gap explains that industries such as shipping, fisheries, offshore energy, ports, aquaculture, and coastal tourism have historically lacked standardized methodologies for assessing marine environmental impacts. Consequently, important ocean-related risks remained largely invisible within corporate sustainability reporting. The 2026 Ocean Metrics highlights CDP's introduction of dedicated ocean-specific disclosure indicators. Organizations operating in ocean-dependent sectors will report on marine biodiversity dependencies, ocean acidification risks, water temperature impacts, ecosystem degradation, and operational interactions with coastal environments. The final regulatory alignment emphasizes that these disclosures are consistent with emerging international initiatives, including the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework and the High Seas Treaty. Early adoption positions companies ahead of evolving regulatory expectations while demonstrating responsible ocean stewardship. For sustainability practitioners, this represents a major evolution in environmental governance. Ocean-related disclosures improve corporate understanding of marine ecosystem dependencies, strengthen climate adaptation strategies, enhance biodiversity conservation efforts, and support blue economy investments. As global sustainability frameworks continue to converge, ocean stewardship will become an increasingly important component of integrated environmental disclosure and long-term corporate resilience. Slide 5. The Integrated Questionnaire, a landmark simplification. This slide presents the Integrated Questionnaire, one of CDP's most significant structural innovations designed to simplify environmental reporting while improving the quality and consistency of corporate disclosures. The Integrated Questionnaire explains how CDP merged its previously separate climate, forests, and water questionnaires into a unified disclosure platform during 2024. This integration reflects the scientific understanding that environmental systems function as interconnected components rather than isolated domains. A landmark simplification demonstrates how a single integrated reporting structure reduces duplication, improves reporting efficiency, and creates greater consistency across environmental disclosures. Organizations can now prepare comprehensive environmental reports through one coordinated process. Why it matters addresses a long-standing challenge in sustainability management. Separate reporting processes often resulted in fragmented organizational strategies where climate, water, forests, biodiversity, and supply chain teams worked independently. Such silos limited organizations' ability to identify environmental interdependencies and cumulative risks. The result illustrates how integrated reporting encourages systems thinking. Companies now evaluate how deforestation influences water availability, how water scarcity affects production resilience, how biodiversity loss impacts supply chains, and how these interconnected factors collectively influence climate transition risks and financial performance. As instructors and sustainability professionals, we should appreciate that integrated disclosure strengthens strategic decision-making, enterprise risk management, cross-functional collaboration, regulatory preparedness, and investor confidence. More importantly, it shifts environmental reporting from a compliance exercise toward a comprehensive management framework capable of guiding organizations through increasingly complex sustainability challenges. This integrated approach represents the future direction of corporate environmental governance and global ESG reporting. Slide 6. Part 11. Technology as the Catalyst. Welcome to Part 11. Technology as the Catalyst, where we examine how digital innovation is transforming CDP from a traditional environmental disclosure platform into a dynamic, real-time environmental intelligence ecosystem. As sustainability reporting becomes increasingly data-intensive, technology has emerged as the critical enabler of transparency, efficiency, and decision-making. Technology as the Catalyst illustrates CDP's transition from an annual, document-based reporting process to a continuously evolving digital platform powered by artificial intelligence, automated data integration, and advanced analytics. Real-time visibility highlights CDP's movement away from annual environmental snapshots toward continuous digital reporting. This evolution enables investors, regulators, and corporate leaders to access more current and decision-useful environmental information, thereby improving risk assessment and strategic planning. The second is direct data upload, introduces automated data ingestion from internal enterprise systems. Rather than relying on manual spreadsheet compilation, organizations can directly transfer validated environmental performance data into the CDP platform, significantly reducing reporting errors, improving consistency, and accelerating submission timelines. The third topic, copy-forward intelligence, demonstrates another major innovation. Companies can retain previously reported information while updating only those parameters that have changed during the reporting cycle. This intelligent functionality substantially reduces administrative workload and enhances reporting efficiency, particularly for organizations with mature sustainability programs. As sustainability professionals, we should recognize that digital transformation is redefining environmental governance. Technology enables higher quality disclosures, stronger internal controls, enhanced data integrity, faster reporting cycles, and improved stakeholder confidence. Ultimately, digital intelligence empowers organizations to move beyond compliance toward predictive sustainability management and evidence-based environmental decision-making. Slide 7. The AI Disclosure Assistant. This slide introduces one of CDP's most innovative digital developments, the AI Disclosure Assistant. Artificial intelligence is rapidly transforming sustainability reporting by making environmental disclosure more accessible, accurate, and efficient for organizations of every size. The AI Disclosure Assistant represents a fundamental shift from static reporting guidance toward intelligent, interactive decision support embedded directly within the disclosure platform. The next generation guidance explains how AI provides real-time explanations for disclosure questions. Instead of consulting lengthy manuals or external consultants, reporting teams receive immediate contextual assistance while completing questionnaires, improving both efficiency and reporting quality. The democratizing disclosure addresses one of the greatest challenges facing environmental reporting: limited expertise within small and medium-sized enterprises. Historically, comprehensive ESG disclosures required specialized consultants and experienced sustainability teams. The AI assistant significantly lowers these barriers by providing expert-level guidance accessible to every reporting organization. Another important topic, real-time explanations, enables users to receive plain language interpretations of complex disclosure requirements, helping them understand reporting expectations rather than merely completing forms. The final topic, contextual guidance and SME accessibility, demonstrates how AI customizes recommendations according to industrial sector, geographic location, and organizational characteristics. This personalization ensures that disclosures remain relevant, proportionate, and scientifically aligned while supporting smaller organizations in achieving higher quality reporting outcomes. From an instructional perspective, AI should be viewed as a decision support tool rather than a replacement for professional expertise. Human judgment, scientific understanding, governance oversight, and ethical responsibility remain essential. However, AI substantially enhances reporting efficiency, improves consistency, strengthens data quality, and broadens global participation in environmental disclosure frameworks, thereby accelerating the transition toward transparent and sustainable business practices. Slide 8. Digital Resilience. In this session, we focus on digital resilience, an increasingly critical dimension of environmental disclosure. As CDP manages one of the world's largest repositories of corporate environmental information, ensuring cybersecurity, data integrity, and stakeholder confidence has become an indispensable organizational responsibility. The digital resilience emphasizes that trustworthy sustainability reporting depends not only on accurate environmental data but also on secure digital infrastructure capable of protecting confidential corporate information. The Cyber Essentials certification highlights CDP's achievement of the United Kingdom government-backed Cyber Essentials certification. This internationally recognized cybersecurity standard demonstrates that CDP has implemented robust controls to defend against common cyber threats affecting sensitive information systems. The data integrity focuses on maintaining the authenticity, completeness, and reliability of environmental disclosures. Institutional-grade security protocols, controlled access mechanisms, audit trails, and rigorous governance procedures ensure that reported information cannot be altered, manipulated, or misused after submission. The last topic, signatory trust, underlines the importance of maintaining confidence among participating organizations. Thousands of companies voluntarily disclose commercially sensitive environmental information through CDP because they trust that their data will remain confidential, protected, and professionally managed. As sustainability practitioners, we must understand that digital resilience extends beyond cybersecurity. It encompasses governance, accountability, operational continuity, regulatory compliance, and stakeholder confidence. High-quality environmental disclosures lose credibility if the underlying information systems lack security or integrity. Therefore, organizations must integrate cybersecurity, digital governance, and sustainability reporting into a unified risk management framework capable of supporting transparent, resilient, and trusted environmental disclosure in an increasingly digital economy. Slide 9. Part 12. The Supply Chain Powerhouse. Welcome to Part 12. The Supply Chain Powerhouse, where we examine one of CDP's most influential mechanisms for driving global sustainability transformation. Environmental responsibility extends well beyond an organization's direct operations. It encompasses the entire value chain, including suppliers, contractors, manufacturers, logistics providers, and distributors. The Supply Chain Powerhouse demonstrates how CDP leverages corporate purchasing power to improve environmental performance throughout global supply networks. Rather than focusing solely on large multinational corporations, CDP encourages environmental accountability across every tier of the supply chain. Major Purchases highlights the participation of more than 270 leading global corporations that require suppliers to disclose environmental performance through CDP. This collective demand significantly expands sustainability expectations throughout international markets. The buying power emphasizes the extraordinary influence generated by approximately $6.4 trillion in combined procurement expenditure. Such purchasing power creates strong commercial incentives for suppliers to improve environmental management, reduce emissions, conserve resources, and strengthen governance practices. Multiplier effect across supply chains explains how sustainability requirements cascade through multiple supplier tiers. When leading organizations such as multinational manufacturers or retailers establish disclosure expectations, thousands of smaller suppliers adopt improved environmental management systems to maintain commercial relationships. As environmental professionals, we should appreciate that supply chain disclosure enhances transparency, reduces climate and nature-related risks, strengthens procurement decisions, improves supplier resilience, and supports responsible sourcing. Effective sustainability management now requires organizations to understand environmental impacts throughout their complete value chain rather than focusing exclusively on direct operational boundaries. Supply chain transparency has therefore become a cornerstone of modern ESG leadership and sustainable procurement strategies. Slide 10. SME Inclusion. This slide explores SME inclusion, an essential component of CDP's strategy for achieving comprehensive environmental disclosure across global value chains. Although multinational corporations receive considerable attention in sustainability reporting, small and medium-sized enterprises collectively represent the foundation of most industrial ecosystems and contribute substantially to global environmental impacts. The SME inclusion recognizes that meaningful sustainability transformation cannot occur unless smaller businesses are actively engaged in environmental reporting and continuous improvement. The Why SMEs Matter explains that a significant proportion of a large corporation's environmental footprint often originates within its supplier network, where SMEs dominate production, logistics, component manufacturing, and service delivery. Excluding SMEs therefore creates major gaps in environmental accounting and supply chain transparency. The Tailored Solutions describes CDP's development of proportionate disclosure mechanisms specifically designed for smaller organizations. The introduction of the SME Climate score acknowledges resource limitations while encouraging ambitious environmental performance through simplified yet credible reporting requirements. Further simplified questionnaires means dedicated reporting modules for climate, forests, and water employ accessible language, fewer mandatory data fields, and practical guidance that enables SMEs to participate without extensive technical expertise or excessive financial burden. Lastly, one should emphasize that SME participation strengthens the overall credibility of environmental disclosure systems. Inclusive reporting improves supply chain transparency, supports regulatory readiness, enhances competitiveness, facilitates access to sustainable finance, and encourages innovation throughout the business ecosystem. Ultimately, empowering SMEs ensures that sustainability becomes an inclusive economic transformation rather than an initiative limited solely to large multinational enterprises, thereby accelerating progress toward global environmental objectives. Slide 11. Sector-specific deep dives. Welcome to the session on sector-specific deep dives, where we explore one of CDP's greatest strengths, its ability to provide industry-specific environmental disclosure frameworks. Every industry faces unique environmental risks, operational challenges, regulatory expectations, and sustainability priorities. Consequently, a standardized reporting approach cannot adequately capture sector-specific environmental impacts. The sector-specific deep dives demonstrates how CDP tailors its questionnaires to reflect the material environmental risks and opportunities relevant to individual industries. This sectoral approach improves the comparability, relevance, and decision usefulness of disclosed information. The manufacturing and energy focuses on industries with substantial greenhouse gas emissions and energy consumption. CDP requires disclosures covering Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3 emissions, industrial decarbonization pathways, stranded asset risks, renewable energy transition strategies, and operational energy efficiency. Such reporting enables organizations to align their transition plans with global net zero commitments. The agriculture and food addresses industries whose environmental impacts are closely linked to land use and ecosystem health. Companies disclose information related to deforestation, soil conservation, freshwater use, agricultural methane emissions, biodiversity protection, and sustainable commodity sourcing. The financial services reflects the growing importance of sustainable finance. Banks, insurers, and asset managers report financed emissions, portfolio alignment with climate goals, climate stress testing, and nature-related financial risks, thereby supporting more informed investment decisions. As sustainability professionals, we should recognize that sector-specific reporting enhances benchmarking, risk management, regulatory compliance, and strategic planning. By focusing on financially material environmental issues, CDP enables organizations to develop targeted sustainability strategies while providing investors with comparable, reliable, and industry-relevant information for responsible capital allocation. Slide 12. Part 13, the Adaptation and Action Explorer. In this slide, we begin Part 13, the Adaptation and Action Explorer, an innovative platform that transforms environmental disclosure into actionable climate intelligence. Traditionally, sustainability reporting focused primarily on documenting historical environmental performance. CDP now seeks to convert reported data into practical decision support for climate adaptation and resilience planning. The Adaptation and Action Explorer introduces an AI-enabled platform that connects environmental disclosures with localized climate risk assessments and evidence-based adaptation strategies. The first is Disclosure to Risk Management, explains how the Explorer translates reported environmental information into assessments of physical climate hazards, including floods, droughts, heat waves, sea level rise, and extreme weather events. This enables organizations to identify location-specific vulnerabilities before they become significant operational or financial risks. The AI-powered Pathways demonstrates how artificial intelligence recommends practical adaptation measures by linking identified risks with scientifically validated intervention options. Organizations can therefore prioritize investments based on effectiveness, feasibility, and long-term resilience outcomes. The local and regional scale emphasizes that climate impacts differ substantially across geographic regions. Unlike generalized global climate models, the Explorer provides place-based intelligence tailored to individual cities, industrial zones, watersheds, and regional ecosystems, thereby supporting more effective adaptation planning. As environment professionals, one should emphasize that sustainability reporting is evolving beyond compliance documentation toward strategic environmental management. Decision makers increasingly require predictive insights rather than historical data alone. The Adaptation and Action Explorer exemplifies how digital intelligence, artificial intelligence, and localized environmental data can strengthen climate resilience, infrastructure planning, disaster preparedness, and sustainable regional development. Slide 13. From Risk to Opportunity. This slide explores from risk to opportunity, highlighting a fundamental shift in how leading organizations perceive environmental disclosure. Rather than viewing sustainability reporting as a regulatory obligation or administrative burden, progressive companies increasingly recognize disclosure as a strategic business asset capable of creating competitive advantage. From Risk to Opportunity illustrates how transparent environmental reporting enhances corporate resilience, strengthens investor confidence, and supports sustainable long-term value creation. The Capital Access explains that organizations achieving strong CDP performance frequently gain improved access to sustainable finance. Investors increasingly favor companies demonstrating robust environmental governance through green bonds, sustainability-linked loans, ESG investment funds, and lower financing costs. Consequently, transparent disclosure directly contributes to improved capital availability. The litigation shield highlights another important benefit. Accurate, verified, and transparent environmental reporting reduces exposure to climate-related litigation, regulatory enforcement actions, financial penalties, and reputational risks. Effective disclosure therefore functions as a proactive risk management mechanism. The long-term stability emphasizes that consistent environmental performance signals sound corporate governance and strategic resilience. Investors increasingly interpret high-quality sustainability disclosures as indicators of effective management, operational efficiency, and preparedness for future environmental regulations, thereby enhancing market valuation and reducing long-term investment risks. As sustainability practitioners, one should encourage organizations to move beyond minimum compliance. Environmental disclosure should become an integral component of strategic planning, enterprise risk management, innovation, stakeholder engagement, and sustainable business transformation. Companies that embrace transparency position themselves not only to manage emerging risks but also to unlock new commercial opportunities in an increasingly sustainability-driven global economy. Slide 14. The 7 to 10% reduction rule. In this session, we examine the 7 to 10% reduction rule, one of the most compelling pieces of empirical evidence demonstrating the effectiveness of environmental disclosure. Over the past 25 years, CDP has accumulated extensive data showing that transparency itself can become a powerful catalyst for environmental improvement. The 7 to 10% reduction rule presents research indicating that organizations making their first investor-requested CDP disclosure typically reduce their direct greenhouse gas emissions by approximately 7 to 10% within 24 months. This finding has been consistently observed across industries, geographical regions, and company sizes. The quantified impact explains that systematic measurement and public disclosure create organizational accountability. Once environmental performance becomes transparent to investors, boards, regulators, and stakeholders, companies are more likely to implement operational improvements, invest in cleaner technologies, and strengthen environmental governance. The structural accountability emphasizes that disclosure is not merely a reporting exercise, it establishes measurable performance expectations. Environmental metrics become integrated into strategic planning, executive oversight, and investment decisions, driving continuous operational improvement. The third-time effect highlights that approximately 69% of organizations reporting for the third time establish more ambitious environmental targets than during previous reporting cycles. Repeated disclosure therefore encourages continuous learning, stronger governance, and progressively higher sustainability ambitions. As instructors, we should emphasize that transparency is not the final objective. It is the mechanism through which measurable environmental improvement occurs. Reliable disclosure strengthens accountability, accelerates emissions reduction, improves organizational learning, and fosters a culture of continual environmental excellence, thereby contributing meaningfully to global climate mitigation objectives. Slide 15, Part 14, The Global Landscape. Welcome to Part 14, The Global Landscape, where we examine the extraordinary international expansion of CDP over the past 25 years. What began as a London-based initiative has evolved into one of the world's largest environmental disclosure networks, connecting corporations, investors, governments, and financial institutions across the globe. The global landscape illustrates the worldwide reach and influence of CDP in promoting transparent environmental governance and sustainable financial decision-making. The global presence highlights that CDP now operates across approximately 130 countries, encompassing developed economies, emerging markets, and rapidly industrializing regions. This extensive geographic coverage enables globally consistent environmental reporting while accommodating regional regulatory and market differences. The corporate participation demonstrates the remarkable scale of organizational engagement, with more than 25,000 companies participating in environmental disclosure. These organizations represent virtually every major industrial sector, providing an unparalleled repository of environmental performance information. The institutional investor influence emphasizes that CDP supports investors collectively representing approximately $127 trillion in assets under management. Such significant financial influence reinforces the growing integration of environmental information into investment analysis, corporate governance, and capital allocation decisions. As sustainability professionals, one should appreciate that environmental disclosure has evolved from a voluntary best practice into a globally recognized business expectation. CDP's international network promotes harmonized sustainability reporting, facilitates regulatory interoperability, strengthens investor confidence, and accelerates corporate environmental action across borders. Its expanding global footprint demonstrates that environmental transparency has become a fundamental pillar of responsible business conduct and sustainable economic development in the 21st century. Slide 16, Navigating the Regulatory Wave. Welcome to this session on Navigating the Regulatory Wave, where we examine the accelerating convergence between voluntary environmental disclosure and mandatory sustainability reporting regulations. Over the past decade, environmental reporting has evolved from a corporate social responsibility initiative into a legally enforceable business requirement across major global economies. The Navigating the Regulatory Wave emphasizes how organizations must proactively adapt to rapidly expanding sustainability regulations while maintaining consistency across multiple reporting frameworks. The EU Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, CSRD, highlights one of the world's most comprehensive sustainability reporting regulations. The CSRD significantly expands disclosure obligations to more than 50,000 companies operating within or connected to the European Union. Organizations already reporting through CDP can leverage considerable alignment between the two frameworks, thereby reducing duplication and enhancing reporting efficiency. The UK TCFD mandate demonstrates how climate-related financial disclosures have become mandatory for listed companies and large private organizations within the United Kingdom. CDP's questionnaire structure closely aligns with the recommendations of the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, enabling organizations to meet multiple reporting requirements through a coordinated disclosure process. The third ISSB Standards and Future Preparedness focuses on the International Sustainability Standards Board's IFRS S1 and IFRS S2 standards. CDP has mapped its disclosure framework to these internationally accepted sustainability standards, ensuring interoperability across jurisdictions and strengthening regulatory readiness. So as a sustainability professionals, one should recognize that regulatory convergence represents an opportunity rather than merely a compliance obligation. Organizations adopting integrated, science-based disclosure frameworks today will be significantly better positioned to manage evolving legal requirements, attract sustainable investment, reduce compliance costs, and strengthen long-term corporate resilience in an increasingly regulated global marketplace. Slide 17, Part 15, Governance and Accountability. This slide introduces Part 15, Governance and Accountability, highlighting one of the most fundamental principles of sustainable business management. Environmental performance cannot be achieved solely through operational improvements. It requires strong governance structures, executive leadership, and organizational accountability at the highest decision-making levels. The governance and accountability emphasizes that environmental responsibility must be integrated into corporate governance systems, where strategic priorities, investment decisions, and long-term organizational objectives are established. The board-level responsibility explains that CDP requires organizations to identify the board committee or senior executive responsible for overseeing climate, water, forest, and broader environmental strategies. This requirement ensures that sustainability considerations become integral components of enterprise governance rather than isolated operational activities. The executive sign-off reinforces executive accountability by requiring annual disclosures to receive formal approval from senior leadership. Executive endorsement demonstrates organizational commitment, strengthens data credibility, and ensures that environmental performance receives appropriate strategic attention before public disclosure. The target accountability illustrates CDP's commitment to continuous performance monitoring. Environmental commitments disclosed by organizations are tracked over successive reporting cycles, creating a transparent record of progress against stated objectives. Stakeholders can therefore evaluate whether organizations consistently deliver on publicly announced sustainability targets. From an instructional perspective, effective environmental governance extends beyond policy development. It requires leadership commitment, measurable objectives, transparent reporting, internal controls, performance evaluation, and continuous improvement. Strong governance frameworks build investor confidence, enhance regulatory compliance, improve organizational resilience, and ensure that sustainability becomes an integral driver of long-term corporate strategy rather than a standalone reporting exercise. Slide 18. The role of the SBTi. In this session, we examine the role of the Science-Based Targets Initiative, SBTi, one of the most influential developments in corporate climate action. While environmental disclosure improves transparency, organizations also require scientifically credible methods for establishing meaningful emissions reduction targets. This need led to the creation of the Science-Based Targets Initiative. The role of the SBTi highlights CDP's role as one of the founding organizations of this globally recognized partnership, established in collaboration with the United Nations Global Compact, UNGC, the World Resources Institute, WRI, and the Worldwide Fund for Nature, WWF. The co-founding the Science-Based Targets Initiative explains how this collaboration established internationally accepted methodologies for defining corporate emissions reduction pathways aligned with limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. The Bridging Intent and Science emphasizes that prior to SBTi, many corporate climate commitments lacked consistency, scientific credibility, and comparability. Science-based targets introduced standardized methodologies that convert global climate science into measurable organizational performance objectives. The CDP integration demonstrates how CDP now captures whether organizations have adopted validated SBTi targets within their annual disclosures. Companies achieving verified science-based targets receive positive recognition within CDP's assessment process, strengthening both transparency and credibility. Lastly, one should understand that effective climate governance requires both disclosure and scientifically validated action. Environmental reporting communicates organizational performance, while science-based targets provide credible pathways for continuous improvement. Together, CDP and SBTi establish an integrated framework that strengthens accountability, supports investor confidence, accelerates decarbonization, and advances global climate mitigation objectives. Slide 19, Cocoa, Coffee, and Rubber. This slide examines cocoa, coffee, and rubber, highlighting CDP's expansion of forest risk commodity reporting to address some of the world's most environmentally significant agricultural supply chains. As scientific understanding of biodiversity loss has advanced, corporate accountability has expanded beyond traditional forest risk commodities to include additional products strongly associated with tropical deforestation. The cocoa, coffee, and rubber introduces CDP's decision to classify these commodities as scored high-risk categories within its forest disclosure framework beginning in 2026. Why these commodities explains the environmental significance of these agricultural products. Cocoa cultivation contributes to extensive deforestation across West Africa. Coffee expansion threatens biodiversity hotspots within Central America and Southeast Asia, while rubber plantations have accelerated rainforest conversion throughout the Mekong region. These activities directly affect biodiversity, ecosystem services, carbon storage, and climate resilience. Scored accountability demonstrates that organizations sourcing these commodities must now disclose credible no deforestation and no conversion commitments. Performance against these commitments directly influences CDP scoring, thereby encouraging stronger environmental governance throughout agricultural supply chains. The last, supply chain traceability, emphasizes the increasing importance of transparency beyond first-tier suppliers. Organizations are expected to trace commodities to their origins, demonstrating comprehensive oversight throughout increasingly complex global supply networks. Lastly, one should recognize that responsible commodity sourcing is becoming central to biodiversity conservation, climate mitigation, sustainable agriculture, and responsible procurement. Enhanced traceability, transparent reporting, and science-based supply chain management will play increasingly important roles in protecting tropical ecosystems while strengthening long-term supply chain resilience and corporate environmental stewardship. Slide 20, Part 16, the 2026 Innovation Frontier. Welcome to Part 16, the 2026 Innovation Frontier, where we explore the next generation of innovations shaping CDP's strategic evolution. These developments reflect CDP's transition from a traditional disclosure platform into a comprehensive environmental intelligence system capable of supporting integrated sustainability decision-making. The 2026 Innovation Frontier introduces three transformative innovations that collectively redefine corporate environmental reporting and strengthen global sustainability governance. The Ocean Disclosure marks the introduction of dedicated marine reporting metrics. Organizations operating within ocean-dependent sectors will disclose impacts relating to marine biodiversity, ocean acidification, coastal ecosystems, and the broader blue economy. This innovation fills one of the final major gaps within global environmental reporting frameworks. The AI intelligence highlights the continued expansion of digital technologies through the Adaptation and Action Explorer. Artificial intelligence converts environmental disclosure data into actionable climate resilience strategies by identifying localized risks and recommending evidence-based adaptation measures for businesses, cities, and regional authorities. The integrated questionnaire reinforces CDP's movement toward holistic environmental reporting. By fully integrating climate, forests, and water into a unified disclosure system, organizations gain deeper insights into environmental interdependencies, enabling more effective strategic planning and risk management. As instructors, we should emphasize that these innovations represent far more than technological improvements. They establish the foundation for a new generation of sustainability governance built upon integrated environmental intelligence, science-based decision-making, digital transformation, and global regulatory interoperability. Together, these developments position CDP as a leading platform supporting the transition toward resilient, nature-positive, and net-zero economies worldwide. Slide 21. The Ocean Opportunity. Welcome to this session on the Ocean Opportunity, which highlights one of the most significant frontiers in corporate environmental disclosure. For decades, sustainability reporting focused primarily on climate change, energy consumption, and terrestrial ecosystems. However, oceans, despite regulating Earth's climate and sustaining global biodiversity, received comparatively little attention within corporate reporting frameworks. CDP's latest initiatives seek to address this critical gap. The Ocean Opportunity emphasizes the strategic importance of integrating marine ecosystem considerations into environmental governance and sustainability reporting. A critical data gap closes explains why ocean disclosure is becoming increasingly important. Oceans generate approximately half of the world's oxygen, absorb significant quantities of atmospheric carbon dioxide, regulate global temperatures, and provide food security and livelihoods for billions of people. Despite these vital ecosystem services, marine environmental impacts have historically remained underreported in corporate sustainability assessments. 2026, the first disclosure, introduces CDP's dedicated ocean disclosure metrics. Companies operating within shipping, fisheries, offshore energy, aquaculture, coastal infrastructure, and maritime logistics will now assess and disclose their dependencies, impacts, and risks associated with marine ecosystems. Regulatory alignment and competitive advantage demonstrates that these disclosures align with emerging international initiatives such as the UN High Seas Treaty, the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, and evolving marine spatial planning regulations. Early adopters will strengthen regulatory preparedness while demonstrating leadership in responsible ocean stewardship. As sustainability professionals, we should recognize that protecting marine ecosystems contributes directly to climate resilience, biodiversity conservation, sustainable blue economy development, and long-term business continuity. Ocean disclosure represents the next logical evolution in comprehensive environmental governance and integrated planetary health accounting. Slide 22, Part 17, Deepening Nature-Positive Standards. This slide introduces Part 17, Deepening Nature-Positive Standards, reflecting CDP's commitment to advancing beyond climate-focused disclosure toward comprehensive environmental stewardship. The concept of a nature-positive economy recognizes that long-term business success depends upon protecting and restoring natural ecosystems rather than merely minimizing environmental harm. Deepening nature-positive standards illustrates how CDP is aligning its disclosure framework with internationally recognized scientific initiatives that integrate climate, biodiversity, freshwater, forests, oceans, and ecosystem health into a unified sustainability strategy. TNFD alignment highlights CDP's direct mapping to the Task Force on Nature-Related Financial Disclosures, TNFD. This alignment enables organizations to identify, assess, manage, and disclose nature-related financial risks while meeting growing investor expectations for biodiversity reporting. The SBTN integration focuses on the incorporation of methodologies developed by the Science-Based Targets Network, SBTN. These science-based approaches help organizations establish measurable environmental targets covering land, freshwater, oceans, biodiversity, and ecosystem restoration alongside climate commitments. The Every Environmental Pillar demonstrates CDP's ambition to integrate all major environmental dimensions, including climate, forests, biodiversity, plastics, water, and oceans, within one coherent reporting architecture. Such integration promotes systems thinking and enables organizations to evaluate cumulative environmental impacts rather than isolated sustainability indicators. Finally, one should emphasize that future environmental leadership will depend upon science-based, integrated, and nature-positive decision-making. Organizations adopting these comprehensive disclosure frameworks will strengthen resilience, enhance stakeholder confidence, improve regulatory preparedness, and contribute meaningfully toward achieving global biodiversity, climate, and sustainable development objectives. Slide 23, the new Commodities Standard. In this session, we explore the new Commodities Standard, a significant enhancement to CDP's forest risk disclosure framework. Agricultural commodity production remains one of the principal drivers of global deforestation, biodiversity loss, and ecosystem degradation. Consequently, strengthening disclosure requirements for high-risk commodities has become an essential component of responsible supply chain governance. The new Commodities Standard reflects CDP's expansion of environmental accountability beyond traditional forest risk commodities to include cocoa, coffee, and rubber within scored disclosure requirements. The expansion of high-risk commodities explains that these commodities have historically operated outside rigorous environmental reporting despite their substantial contributions to tropical forest conversion. Their inclusion reflects growing recognition of their environmental significance within international sustainability policies. The verifiable no deforestation commitments emphasizes that organizations sourcing these commodities must now demonstrate credible, measurable, and independently verifiable commitments to eliminate deforestation and ecosystem conversion throughout their supply chains. These commitments are expected to extend beyond immediate suppliers toward deeper supply chain tiers. The strengthening supply chain governance illustrates how improved traceability enables organizations to identify environmental risks, enhance procurement transparency, strengthen supplier accountability, and demonstrate responsible sourcing practices. Such transparency supports investor confidence, regulatory compliance, and corporate sustainability performance. As sustainability professionals, we should recognize that commodity traceability is rapidly becoming a strategic business requirement rather than a voluntary initiative. Transparent sourcing, science-based forest protection, biodiversity conservation, and comprehensive supply chain oversight will increasingly define responsible corporate leadership and contribute to achieving global commitments related to climate change, ecosystem restoration, and sustainable agricultural development. Slide 24, SME Integration, the Supply Chain Catalyst. This slide examines SME integration, the supply chain catalyst, highlighting CDP's continued efforts to strengthen sustainability performance throughout global supply chains by empowering small and medium-sized enterprises. Since SMEs constitute the majority of suppliers within most industries, meaningful sustainability transformation cannot occur without their active participation. The SME integration, the supply chain catalyst, demonstrates how simplified disclosure frameworks enable smaller organizations to contribute effectively to corporate sustainability objectives while enhancing value chain transparency. The 2026 updates explains that CDP has further simplified its forest and water security questionnaires for SMEs. These proportionate reporting requirements reduce technical complexity, minimize administrative burden, and eliminate unnecessary dependence upon external sustainability consultants, making disclosure more practical and accessible. The SME Climate Score introduces a major advancement allowing small enterprises to achieve the highest level of environmental recognition within the climate questionnaire. This initiative encourages SMEs to pursue environmental excellence rather than limiting their ambitions to basic compliance. The Tier 2 and Tier 3 mapping emphasizes the growing importance of extending environmental visibility beyond direct suppliers. Organizations increasingly require deeper supply chain mapping to identify hidden environmental risks, improve traceability, and satisfy evolving customer, investor, and regulatory expectations. Lastly, one should emphasize that SME inclusion strengthens the integrity of global sustainability reporting. Simplified disclosure tools promote environmental awareness, improve supplier competitiveness, facilitate access to sustainable finance, and encourage continuous improvement throughout industrial ecosystems. Inclusive sustainability frameworks ensure that environmental responsibility becomes embedded across entire value chains rather than remaining concentrated within only the largest multinational corporations. Slide 25, Part 18, Technological Resilience. Welcome to Part 18, Technological Resilience, where we examine the digital infrastructure supporting one of the world's largest environmental disclosure systems. As millions of environmental data points are collected annually from thousands of organizations, technological resilience has become fundamental to ensuring secure, reliable, and efficient sustainability reporting. The technological resilience emphasizes that robust digital systems are essential for maintaining the credibility, integrity, scalability, and long-term effectiveness of environmental disclosure platforms. The Cyber Essentials highlights CDP's commitment to internationally recognized cybersecurity standards. Through UK government-backed Cyber Essentials certification, CDP demonstrates its ability to protect sensitive environmental information against common cyber threats while strengthening stakeholder confidence in digital reporting systems. The streamlined data ingestion explains how CDP has redesigned its data processing architecture to improve speed, accuracy, scalability, and quality assurance. Automated validation processes reduce manual intervention, improve data consistency, and support increasingly large disclosure volumes as participation continues to expand globally. For Write Once, Read Many introduces one of the most valuable principles of modern sustainability reporting. High-quality disclosures prepared through CDP can satisfy multiple international reporting frameworks simultaneously, thereby reducing reporting duplication, lowering compliance costs, and improving organizational efficiency. As sustainability professionals, we should appreciate that technological resilience extends beyond information technology. It encompasses cybersecurity, digital governance, operational continuity, data quality, interoperability, and stakeholder trust. Reliable technological infrastructure enables organizations to transform environmental information into credible strategic intelligence, supporting informed decision-making and accelerating the global transition toward transparent, integrated, and digitally enabled sustainability governance. Slide 26, Part 19, The Global Disclosure Ecosystem. Welcome to Part 19, The Global Disclosure Ecosystem, where we explore how CDP has evolved beyond a corporate reporting platform into a globally interconnected sustainability ecosystem. Environmental disclosure today serves as the critical link connecting businesses, investors, governments, financial institutions, regulators, and society. Through this interconnected network, environmental information becomes actionable intelligence that supports informed decision-making across the global economy. The global disclosure ecosystem illustrates how CDP facilitates the continuous flow of environmental data from corporations to capital markets and ultimately to policymakers responsible for designing sustainable economic systems. The institutional investors highlights that more than 640 institutional investors, collectively managing approximately $127 trillion in assets, rely on CDP disclosures to evaluate climate risks, environmental governance, and long-term investment resilience. Their financial influence significantly accelerates corporate sustainability transformation. The major purchases demonstrates how over 270 global procurement organizations, representing approximately $6.4 trillion in annual purchasing power, encourage suppliers worldwide to adopt transparent environmental management practices, thereby extending sustainability expectations across international value chains. The Active Corporate Reporters emphasizes that more than 22,100 organizations currently disclose through CDP, generating millions of environmental data points annually. This extensive database supports benchmarking, regulatory compliance, scientific research, investment analysis, and evidence-based policymaking. As sustainability professionals, we should appreciate that environmental disclosure has become a collaborative ecosystem rather than an isolated reporting exercise. By connecting capital markets, corporate governance, scientific methodologies, and public policy, CDP creates an integrated platform that strengthens transparency, accountability, sustainable investment, and collective environmental action across the global economy. Slide 27. The multiplier effect. This slide examines the multiplier effect, illustrating how environmental disclosure creates a powerful cycle of continuous sustainability improvement. One of CDP's greatest achievements is demonstrating that transparency generates behavioral change throughout financial markets, corporate governance systems, and supply chains. The multiplier effect explains how disclosure influences organizational decision-making, investor confidence, capital allocation, and ultimately measurable environmental outcomes through a self-reinforcing cycle. The disclose emphasizes that organizations begin by submitting comprehensive environmental information through CDP's integrated disclosure framework. These verified disclosures establish a transparent and publicly accessible record of environmental performance that supports stakeholder confidence. The measure and score highlights CDP's analytical capability to transform raw environmental information into standardized performance scores ranging from A to F. These scores facilitate benchmarking across companies, sectors, and global markets, enabling objective performance evaluation. The capital flows demonstrates that investors increasingly direct financial resources toward organizations exhibiting superior environmental performance. High-performing companies often benefit from improved access to sustainable finance, lower borrowing costs, stronger investor confidence, and enhanced corporate reputation. The emissions reduction and continuous improvement reinforces empirical evidence demonstrating that transparency encourages measurable operational improvements. Organizations responding to repeated disclosure cycles typically reduce emissions while progressively establishing more ambitious sustainability objectives. Lastly, we should emphasize that transparency initiates a virtuous cycle of accountability, performance improvement, investment confidence, and environmental leadership. This multiplier effect illustrates why disclosure has become one of the most effective mechanisms for accelerating the transition toward resilient, low-carbon, and nature-positive economic development. Slide 28. The Path to 2030 and Beyond. Welcome to the session on the Path to 2030 and Beyond, where we explore CDP's long-term strategic vision for the future of global environmental disclosure. As sustainability challenges become increasingly interconnected, organizations require integrated information systems capable of supporting comprehensive environmental governance and informed strategic decision-making. The Path to 2030 and Beyond presents CDP's ambition to evolve from a disclosure platform into the foundational intelligence infrastructure supporting the global transition toward a nature-positive and net-zero economy. The de facto global standard explains how CDP is progressively becoming the internationally recognized benchmark for environmental disclosure. Its extensive alignment with emerging sustainability standards enables organizations to satisfy multiple reporting requirements through one integrated framework. The Connecting the Dots emphasizes the integration of climate, biodiversity, forests, water, plastics, and ocean-related information within a unified environmental accounting system. Such systems thinking enables organizations to understand environmental interdependencies and develop more effective sustainability strategies. Informing public policy highlights the growing value of CDP's extensive environmental database for governments and regulatory institutions. Evidence-based policymaking increasingly depends upon verified corporate environmental information rather than theoretical models or assumptions. As sustainability practitioners, we should recognize that future competitiveness will depend upon organizations' ability to integrate environmental intelligence into strategic planning, investment decisions, and corporate governance. By connecting scientific evidence, corporate disclosures, financial markets, and public policy, CDP is helping establish the global knowledge infrastructure required to achieve climate resilience, biodiversity conservation, and sustainable development by 2030 and beyond. Slide 29. Conclusion. Transparency as the bedrock of progress. As we approach the conclusion of this chapter, we reflect on transparency as the bedrock of progress, which encapsulates the fundamental philosophy underlying CDP's 25-year journey. One of the most enduring lessons from global sustainability reporting is that organizations improve environmental performance only when they systematically measure, disclose, evaluate, and continuously enhance their environmental impacts. The transparency as the bedrock of progress emphasizes that environmental disclosure is not an administrative obligation but the essential foundation upon which responsible corporate governance, sustainable finance, and environmental accountability are built. The proven track record highlights CDP's extensive evidence demonstrating that transparent environmental reporting consistently precedes meaningful environmental improvement. Organizations utilizing disclosure frameworks generally strengthen governance, reduce emissions, improve resource efficiency, and establish progressively ambitious sustainability targets. The Beyond reporting illustrates that the future of sustainability lies not merely in producing increasingly comprehensive reports but in enabling regenerative business transformation. Organizations must transition from minimizing environmental damage toward actively restoring ecosystems, protecting biodiversity, and creating long-term environmental value. The new norm emphasizes that environmental disclosure has evolved into a strategic business necessity. Investors, regulators, customers, financial institutions, and society increasingly expect organizations to demonstrate transparent environmental governance supported by credible, science-based information. Remember, one should reinforce that transparency as the catalyst for trust, accountability, innovation, and continuous improvement. Organizations embracing comprehensive environmental disclosure today will be better positioned to navigate emerging sustainability challenges while contributing meaningfully to a resilient, inclusive, and environmentally responsible global economy. Slide 30. The future of disclosure, a unified nature-positive standard. This final slide presents the future of disclosure, a unified nature-positive standard, bringing together the major themes explored throughout this chapter. CDP's strategic evolution demonstrates that environmental disclosure is moving beyond fragmented reporting toward an integrated intelligence platform capable of supporting sustainable decision-making across governments, businesses, investors, and society. The future of disclosure highlights CDP's vision of creating a unified environmental reporting framework that integrates climate action, biodiversity conservation, freshwater stewardship, forests, plastics, and ocean ecosystems within one comprehensive disclosure architecture. The 2026 Ocean Innovation introduces dedicated ocean disclosure metrics that complete one of the final gaps in corporate environmental reporting. Organizations will increasingly assess marine ecosystem dependencies, biodiversity impacts, and blue economy risks alongside traditional climate disclosures. The AI integration demonstrates how the AI Disclosure Assistant enhances reporting quality by providing real-time guidance, contextual explanations, and intelligent decision support throughout the disclosure process. This innovation significantly improves accessibility for SMEs and first-time reporters while strengthening data consistency and reporting efficiency. The 2030 Horizon and a Living Database emphasizes CDP's transformation into the world's most comprehensive environmental intelligence repository. With more than 22,100 reporting organizations contributing millions of verified environmental data points annually, CDP provides evidence-based information supporting sustainable finance, corporate governance, public policy, and global environmental action. In conclusion, we should recognize that the future of sustainability depends not merely upon collecting environmental information but upon transforming high-quality data into strategic intelligence that enables informed decisions, strengthens accountability, accelerates innovation, and supports the global transition toward a resilient, nature-positive, and net-zero future. Here we end this presentation and now shall move to Part 3 of CDP 2026 Disclosure Cycle. We encourage you to remain actively engaged with our channel, participate in the forthcoming sessions in continuing this topic related to various types of risk associated in sustainable disclosures, and thoughtfully disseminate these professional insights across your networks, particularly among business leaders, sustainability practitioners, compliance professionals, and stakeholders committed to advancing responsible corporate governance and transparent reporting practices.